Welcome back to another episode of Millennials to Millionaires. I'm Alicia Ace West.
I'm Daniel, King Sold.
Yes, and we got a guest today. You might know him from TV. You might know him from Instagram. You might know him from being the #1 real estate agent on property.
On social media, on Property Spark.
On social media, on Property Spark, okay? Yeah. His name is Demetres, and welcome to the M2M podcast.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, so your history actually dates back to being on Big Brother.
It does.
Which is kind of cool.
It's been a journey to get to the point where we are today, for sure.
Yeah. I've never watched Big Brother like in its entirety, but like I've seen
bits and pieces.
Yeah, like I would only see certain episodes and I would just end up getting caught up and I'm just like, what's going on? I need to. But it seems so cool and I definitely think that one day I'm going to audition for it just cuz to see if I make it, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. It was a lot of fun.
So, you're in real estate right now. Is that what you were doing before you got onto that show?
No. So, well, kind of. So, before I got on the show, I was actually working in the oil field in Alberta.
Yes.
I grew up in a small town in the literally the middle of nowhere.
What town?
It's called Edson, Alberta. Shout out to anyone from Edson watching here.
All 8 people.
Yeah. But, I was working in the oil field out there at the time. Now, when I grew up, my father was a real estate investor, and he kind of got me into the space. And as I was working in the oil field, I was banking my money. I was buying rental properties and slowly getting into, building my empire at the time. And then I was, 24, 25, auditioned for Big Brother. It took me a few years to get on. Got on the show. Met the love of my life.
Aww.
Met Aika. She was out in Toronto, and I had to think of a way to kind of transition. There's no oil field out here in Ontario.
Yeah.
I'm making that move. What's the next step? Being a real estate agent had always kind of been on my mind, but it was one of those things that's kind of like a distant dream, right? You're like, oh yeah, like in my next life, I would become like
that's me currently.
a stud real estate agent, right? And then you get off the show, and I was just like, well, if there was ever a time to transition, I had my rental properties, I had a little bit of money saved up, to start my business, and I took a dive and went for it.
Well, it's great that you actually had the oil field money because my cousin currently works there. He actually moved from Ontario to move out there to work there, and he's been doing it for at least a decade now.
For sure.
And I just know that it can be very beneficial. Obviously, you have to put in a lot of work. You're working like 12, 14 hours a day. But financially, you're able to really have that money, and because you're literally nowhere, you don't spend it as much, so you're able to save it. And I think that's a great thing that you're able to kind of get your feet wet before while still having your career.
For sure.
And then on top of that, I'm sure being on Big Brother, what year were you on?
So we were on season 5.
Season 5.
That was like 2017.
Okay, yeah. So that's in an era when social media started becoming more, it was around, but that's when people really started being able to monetize off of it, right?
Exactly.
And the following started to really grow. And so I'm sure being on that show, it helped you gain a following that has allowed you more access to a bigger clientele, right?
For sure.
So what are some tips that you've used being able to like really get your social media following into actually purchasing and being a part of your real estate network?
Yeah, absolutely. And when I first moved to Toronto, I had the following from the show, and I was thinking, okay, no problem. Like, throw a real estate stamp on there and we're in business.
Everybody's going to buy from you.
Just like that, right? And it was a pretty humbling experience. The first 6 months in Toronto, I didn't do a single deal. And I had to take a hard look in the mirror and be like, okay, what are we doing here? And reassess. And that was when I went out. I invested in myself through mentorship and just really buckling down on how I'm going to actually build a business. So it really came down after that. I said to myself, I'm going to post real estate stories on my Instagram for a year straight and see what happens. And at the time, like, especially at the beginning, I was getting a lot of like pushback from the followers that I did have saying, we're not interested, you know, stop posting this. Nobody cares about real estate, right?
Unfollow,
right? And I'm just like, okay, like,
oh my gosh.
Right? It's tough, but I was just like, I took the mentality of like, you know what, this is what I'm passionate about. This is what I want to do. And if it's not something that aligns with the viewership, then, you know, there's plenty of other pages that you can follow. This is what I wanted to post. And sure enough, like after being consistent, people started reaching out, and it creates a totally different atmosphere than like your typical lead gen where, you know, you're picking up cold leads and you know, you're really having to dial in on your sales skill to convert them, where people are literally reaching out. They've been watching your stories or your content for the last 6 months. They're sold on you. Now it's just a matter of servicing them. And it really creates an interesting dynamic where everybody, it just creates a really good experience because like we already vibe well. You know, I don't have to try to mirror the client and match their personality, because if they didn't vibe well with me from a distance,
they wouldn't be following you. They wouldn't have reached out. Like,
so,
you wouldn't have gotten that far.
Exactly. So every transaction goes smooth. We have a fantastic time, you know, and when we find them a house, we sell their house, whatever the case may be, and it just makes doing business like a whole lot of fun.
Did you ever think that coming from this small town in Alberta that you were going to be the #1 realtor in Toronto on social media?
You know, like I feel like when we're kids, or at least like this, like some of us when we're kids, like we have big dreams, right? And I always had big dreams. Now, would I have said like being the #1 agent on social media in Toronto, like specifically, absolutely not. But like I always hoped that there was something more than just like, you know, pulling wrenches out in -30. And there's nothing wrong with that. I made a ton of money doing that. But it just got to a point where I had kind of hit the ceiling at that job, and it was like, okay, what's next? What's my path? What is, you know, what am I going to look back on like 80-year-old Demetres and be like, yeah, I did it. Right?
And something that you're super proud of, and something that might have like more of a purpose, right? Because not only are you doing the real estate stuff, but you also do YouTube videos and stuff like that, right? So at the end of the day, you're entertaining people. How has it transitioned to being able to do multiple like real estate and YouTube? How has that been?
It's tough, and it's still like a grind. You know, your scheduling has to be good. You got to really think about kind of where you are productive in the day. And now it's like, before I used to get up and just try to figure everything out. Where now it's like I have a routine where it's like every morning I know what I'm going to do during the day. I know I'm going to get up, I'm going to send my client emails, I'm going to take care of all the immediate real estate stuff that I need to do. Boom. Go work out, shower, and then after that, it's shoot time with Aika for our YouTube channel. We shoot until XYZ. Okay, as soon as we're done, check the emails for the replies from that I sent this morning. Oh, and I book all my appointments in the evening. So you try to like, you got to figure out what works for you. But when you take on like an entrepreneurial business, like you're going to quickly find out that you're going to run out of time very quickly, and you need to make the most out of every second of that day. And it's crazy. Like, you know, I don't know the last day I can officially say that I had a day off. Like,
but it's something that you enjoy, so.
Exactly. And that's the thing. Anybody taking on that role as an entrepreneur or business owner, whatever the case may be, like you're that type of person. If you want days off, you know, go get a job.
Yeah, most definitely. So how do you think COVID has impacted the real estate market? I know a lot of people that were living in condos downtown. They're like, yo, it's ghost town down here right now. I'm coming to live in Brampton. I'm like, coming to live where? Like, I never heard that one before. Like, people are trying to get out of Brampton. Now it's like people are looking to move to the suburbs and stuff like that. How do you think COVID has impacted the real estate market in a positive or a negative way?
I mean, it's completely changed it. You know, nobody saw what happened coming. It's changed what is considered a desirable property versus what's not considered a desirable property. I remember before the pandemic, I had investors lined up looking at studio apartments, bachelor suites. As soon as one hit the market, it was like I could pitch this property to like 5 different investors. We go look at it and it's sold within a day. Where now those are the properties that are lingering. And then, like you said, you know, Brampton, outside areas are like as hot as they've ever been. Prices are getting to the point where you're almost like, it's just about as much as it is in the city of Toronto for a house. And you're just like, so it's creating an interesting dynamic. I think it's going to be really even more interesting once things potentially start to maybe return to normal somewhat. because now is it going to shift back, you know, and with the prices being, you know, quite high in some of the areas where they weren't high before, you know, are people going to be finding themselves in situations where maybe, you know, they don't want to be. It's going to be interesting because in Toronto, a lot of people, it doesn't matter what you buy, you've been in a very, very good situation where now, because we've seen such a drastic increase in such a short amount of time, potentially opens itself up for some bad if it comes back. But at the same time, as long as interest rates are low, which with the pandemic, it looks like the government's using the interest rate to stimulate the economy, they're going to stay low for a while, and I think prices are going to just keep going. And people are also saving more than they've ever saved before. No vacations, you know, like
no eating out, no Harbor 60 every week.
There you go. Yeah, even shopping, like clothes shopping. Like, when was the last time you really did a huge haul at the mall? And just like, what for?
Not at the mall, but now we do it online.
Exactly. Yeah, now you do it online.
Now you do it at the tip of your fingers. You don't have to leave the couch. You're just like, here.
Packages be coming to the crib every day. It's just like, what do we got now? Like,
I said that the other day. I was like, I need to hire an assistant just to like collect all my packages because I'm like always running to the door and having to buzz people in, and like people are telling me to come to the front, and I'm like, I'm on a call with my meeting. I need somebody to come do this for me.
You know your delivery guy's name by first name.
Yeah. Pretty much. You build that bond over the COVID times. Yeah. So what do you think is like one of your favorite aspects of selling houses? Like if you had to pick one area of it to always do and like potentially give the rest to somebody else to do, what would you like?
You know, and that's changing. So when I first got into it, I would say it was investors, and just coming from that kind of investor background, you know, crunching numbers, looking at how you can, you know, cash flow properties or where you're going to make your money was definitely the most appealing to me. And through doing that, I was posting a lot of stories about it, and those are the type of people that reached out to me, because kind of what you put out is what
you're attracting those people.
Exactly, right? Now that I get into it a little bit more, you know, you can only look at so many studio condos or investment properties before you're like, holy crap, like this is all boring. So I kind of want to start getting into more of the luxury space, more of the bigger homes, and just start like, you know, getting into, you know, the finer stuff, like the different types of, you know, finishes, and really honing in on that. But again, that comes with time too. And that also comes with, you know, you got to know your clientele, and you got to appeal to that clientele. And if you try kind of faking it, if you're not there personally, you know, you're not going to be able to put up that front for very long, right?
Yeah.
So until I get there personally, where maybe I'm the one who's buying these luxury properties, then I'll be able to better sell those. But that's kind of where I'm slowly transitioning towards.
And it's also something about like helping these people, these families potentially buy their dream home that I think would be kind of fulfilling, you know?
100%.
Like being able to see them extremely happy because they finally got the house of their dreams and the kids are so excited. To me, that'd be cool.
You're the hero. You're a superhero.
Yeah.
Especially
you know?
in this market, if you're dealing with buyers. You lock down that house and it's just like high fives all the way
with 19
around.
offers and I got it?
Right.
Like, but how do you guide it? To be honest, I sell pre-construction. You know what we do, pre-construction and development.
Yep.
I haven't worked with a buyer in, I don't know, a year and a half. So I don't know anything about what it is like in this market. How do you advise a client to submit an offer on a place where you have 19 registered offers? Do you just say, hey, let's pay $1 million over asking? Or like, because what if the property doesn't appraise? Like there's so many liabilities. You go in firm and now their deposit is stuck in there. Like, how do you guide somebody?
Yeah. And I mean, it's tough. Like, and that's a thing that a lot of people are struggling with. Like even top agents are talking about how they've got buyers who've lost, you know, 5, 6, 7 homes, and then, you know, you finally get one and it doesn't appraise, and it's like, well, of course, you know, there's 15, 20 offers and we had to put our best foot forward to get it. It's a challenge, and I don't think it's going to go away until those offers start like cooling off. But it's about really understanding that particular client situation. Like, are they super flush with cash, and are the appraisals something that we really need to worry about? But at the end of the day, you really just have to crunch your numbers, and like, you need a good agent. Like if you don't have a good agent, experienced agent, and you're going up against 20 offers, I'm sorry, you don't have a hope. Even if you put the best number first, like often those negotiations or that property's won in the second, third round, and it really comes down to the conversations that you have with the agent, building rapport with the listing agent, and just getting in and having the really hard conversations that most people don't want to have. that you have to have in order to beat out the competition.
What do you think are some tips that a potential home buyer should look for in an agent?
I mean, I don't want to say experience is really, really important. But I wouldn't say don't cross off any new agents. Just make sure that new agent has the proper guidance. If they don't have any guidance,
mentorship's key. That's one of the first things you said.
Exactly. So it's like if they don't have that, then you're done. I would almost say you got to find that sweet spot. And I don't want to self-promote. I would say I'm in that sweet spot. And so are you. Anyone who's been in the business who's, maybe 5 years in, where they're still hungry, they're still building, and they've got the skill set to do it, where you might even run into somebody who's got so much experience. They've been doing it for 20 years. They're they're checked out to some extent. They don't really care.
They're just like, give me the money and dip out.
Exactly. They're going after the easy deals. Where it's like, if you're going to be working with multiple offers and buyers and stuff, you need a bulldog to go in there and get it for you.
Most definitely. Since COVID hit as well, it seems like the traditional real estate brokerages with the brick and mortar have changed. I haven't been able to step foot in my real estate brokerage in over 6 months now. And it's like everything is virtual, but it's like they weren't set up for virtual. So I noticed that you joined a new brokerage the other day, and I kind of been shopping around to kind of see what's the best fit for me. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I joined EXP last summer. It is a virtual brokerage. Everything is cloud-based. And exactly, I actually moved to an area to be closer to my brokerage in March of 2020.
Oh my gosh.
Literally.
Right when everything shut down.
We moved in, I think it was March 7th, and everything got shut down on the 15th. So didn't even get a chance to go to that office, not one single time yet. I was paying, higher fees. I was paying for all the overhead costs for the brokerage. And then I got approached by a good friend of mine back in Alberta about EXP, and I had heard about it, but it was the first time that I actually heard it from a different perspective that wasn't just a sales perspective. It was an entrepreneurial perspective. And it was this makes the most sense moving forward. And it was more of a thing of okay, this is something that I think is going to blow up. It's, it's a new way of doing business for real estate agents. We've been so far behind at adapting. It's one of the worst industries, I would say, for adapting to new times.
Yeah.
Yet now this brokerage comes out and they're rolling out something completely different that nobody else is doing. And I can see how this is going to catch on. So to me, it was do I join now or do I join later? And just looking at, the history of things, had I got into Apple before Apple became Apple, getting in early adapters. You're a pioneer. Exactly. Early adapters really end up reaping more of the benefits. So I took the leap and I did it. And so far, so good. It's a really exciting place to work.
And they truly come around at this company, and their concept and way of doing things came around at the perfect time when every industry is trying to adapt and become more virtual and learn about this whole work from home thing. So they really, it's they kind of forecasted something was coming.
It's crazy because you look at companies like Blockbuster, right? Netflix approached them at one point and said, hey, do you guys want to buy us? And they're like, no, see you later. We're renting out VCRs and VHSs until the end of time.
Yeah, right? But and look what happened to them.
And look what happened to them. Doors are closed, right? So are we going to wait until the doors get, nailed to the coffin, or are you going to take that leap before it's too late? So I'm really looking into it, and I'm definitely think I might have to join you over there on that team, brother.
We can definitely have a chat as soon as this is over.
WhatsApp actually did something like that too. They pitched their company to Facebook, and they turned it down. And then Facebook ended up buying it for $2 billion or whatever crazy number it was. But yeah, they were trying to sell it for $160,000. It was nothing.
What's crazy is even when you look about the story of Airbnb, once it first started, these guys, they couldn't afford their rent. Yeah. So they literally rented out an air mattress in their living room. And when they started approaching investors, they're like, you're crazy. You want strangers
in your house
come stay in your house? What if these people are rapists or murderers or this or that? It's companies are always crazy in the beginning.
For sure.
And, people always think no way. And then as the world starts to evolve,
Yeah.
Airbnb is, you know, bigger than the hotel industry right now.
Yeah.
It's a multi-billion-dollar
right
company.
now, but yeah.
Not right now.
COVID
you know,
kind of stopped everything.
In a few months, they'll be right back up.
They'll be back.
But listen, hotels are down as well, though. So
yeah.
at the end of the day, everything is down right now as opposed to some industries.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to anything that you're doing. And I even think about that with like the artists that I work with. It's like you need to have somebody on your team that really believes in you. Because at the end of the day, when these small artists who aren't signed come to the big labels and they're trying to pitch themselves, a lot of people at the table aren't going to see their vision, right? But if you really have a team that believes in you, understands where you're going, and is willing to push you to get to that level as well, you're more likely to see more success. And that's really applicable to anything. If you're starting a new real estate career, you need to have people who are there to back you up. If you're purchasing a home, you need people there to potentially back you up. If you want to work in media, if you want to do whatever, just have a great support system who believes in your vision, and you will probably get a lot further.
Yeah, that vision is key. It's paramount.
Yeah.
And nothing comes easy, you know. Everything that's good, it comes with a little bit of a, you know, little bit of a struggle. Like, you know, even buying a home. Like, how many people, you know, last year bought a home and they were just like, oh, these prices are astronomical. Yet now we've seen prices go up even more. And they're just like, at the time, it was so hard to pull the trigger on this place. But then it was like the best thing you ever did.
Yeah, now you're up $100,000.
Exactly.
And they're saying thank
you. Exactly. So anything like that, even in business, and even
risk,
adapting, like, you know, not just EXP, but like Airbnb, you need to break the mold. And at the start, everyone's gonna think you're crazy. It's a new revolutionary thing. Even like for agents, you know, we used to door knock and cold call. And I mean, we still do, and it's still a great way to get business. But now you're starting to see the shift of going to social media. And at the start, people are like, I remember even when I started posting Instagram stories, I had agents reaching out to me just like, man, why do you waste your time? How many leads are you possibly getting off of this?
Yeah.
To the point where now I'm like, I get 100% of my business off
just
of social media.
Just from my Instagram. I feel that.
But like, I used to get those DMs.
Really?
Just like, what do you, like,
it's
how?
It's just because they never understood it.
I never understood
And those are the agents that are still knocking on doors right now when it's -20 outside and they're wondering why they can't close the deal.
Or they're just trying to like jump on the wave or whatever, and they don't know what they're doing, and they're creating horrible content, and their whole Instagram feed is so corny and nobody really likes it.
Right.
No shade, but shade.
You know who we're talking about. Thousands of people.
Anyways, do you have any advice for any up and coming real estate agents?
Yeah, I would say, like, if I could go back and do it again, the thing that took me the longest to probably really understand, a couple things, I guess. When people say to do something and they're just like, you know, do this, like, it's funny. I was like thinking, you know, what do they know, you know? And then here I am, you know, structuring my day like I just said at the start, right? I remember somebody telling me that very early on, and I was like, I'll just wing it. I'll be fine. You know, I'm the exception, right? And then it's like, you're not. Do what they say. Do what they say. If they're talking fundamentals, implement those.
Structure.
Right. And then just find one thing that you really enjoy doing, your lead gen source, get really good at it, and be really consistent.
Yes.
And that's it. You know, especially right now, there's a lot of distractions. You could be on TikTok, Instagram, Reels, door knocking, cold calling. You can't do it all at a very high level.
Yeah.
Pick one, do it at a very high level consistently. And after that, if you can end up, you know, systemizing it where you can free up some of your time to take on another one, then great, do that. But start with one, get really good at it, become a pro, move on. Don't try to tackle everything at once because you'll drown.
Yeah, you'll get overwhelmed as well. And right now is not the time to be overwhelmed. You know, we got enough stuff going on,
Sure.
right? Well, thank you so much. We actually end every episode with either a book recommendation, movie, or song, something that gets you motivated. Do you have anything that you would like to share?
So it's funny because I've been asked this question a lot, and like it's motivated me to go pick up a book and maybe start reading. I don't read books, okay? Like, you know, I feel like every entrepreneur person or wannabe entrepreneur person is like, oh, I read all these, and I don't. Not all of us do. I have read Rich Dad Poor Dad. Obviously, I feel like that's the foundation of, you know, getting your mindset to that. And if you have to start somewhere, start with that one. But I just, honestly, I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I have a lot of like mentors that I surround myself with. As soon as I find someone that's doing something really good, I don't try to reinvent the wheel and come up with my own Airbnb or EXP. I just really latch on, I rip off and copy, and I try to put my own spin on it and find those mentors. They're extremely important, and just roll with it.
I agree. Mentorship is really, really key. And we've talked about this on the podcast before, about just having those mentors who can kind of guide you and give you that knowledge. So it's definitely great advice.
I don't know where I'd be without my mentors. I'd
sure.
probably still be selling cars.
We all wouldn't be here without your mentor. So there's that. M2M wouldn't exist without his mentor. So
shout out to Sherrod. There you go.
Yes. Anyways, thank you so much. Where can people find you?
Instagram's the best place to find me. Demetres _GIA. Shoot me a DM. I try to get to everybody.
Yes, yes. And that's another episode of Millennials to Millionaires. I'm Alicia Ace West.
Daniel Kingsold.
And thank you, Demetres.
Right on, guys. Thanks.